These are pre-algebra notes for section 2.5, where we're going to find slope from a table. So in our previous lesson, we found slope from a line on a graph. Now we're going to do it from an XY table of values. So again, we just want to remember that slope measures the steepness of a line. And it can be these four things, but we're going to see, and we'll see what we see today in these tables. To find slope from a table, we're going to find the change in y over the change in x. So when you see this delta, this triangle y, triangle x, that means change in. It's a Greek symbol. And it's measuring how these values change. So you need to be careful that you're always putting y over x. So I'm going to write that every single time. So here we go. We're going to look at how each of these y values change. So I'm going to start by writing change in y over change in x. And I'm going to show to go from 3 to 6, I'm adding 3. 6 to 9, I add 3. 9 to 12, I add 3. And then, so every time on the y side, I'm adding 3. And on the x side, to go from negative 10 to 5, I'm adding 5. Negative 5 to 0, I'm adding 5. 0 to 5, I'm adding 5. So that means my slope is just 3 over 5. You don't want to simplify, you can't simplify it anymore, and you don't want to write it as a decimal. Now this table is horizontal, so I want you to be careful because we still have to do the change in the y values over the change in the x values. So I always want you to do the y values first. These y values, to go from negative 16 to negative 24, we're subtracting 8. Those numbers are getting smaller, so we're subtracting. So the change in y is negative 8, and the change in x, to go from 0 to 4, we're adding 4. 4 to 8, we're adding 4. 8 to 12, we're adding 4. So negative 8 over positive 4 means my slope is negative 2. Let's box that in. It's going to drive me crazy that it's different than the other one. Okay, next one are y values. So again, I'm setting up my ratio first. Change in y over change in x. The y value, to go from 4 to 8, I'm adding 4. 8 to 12, I'm adding 4. 12 to 16, I'm adding 4. And to go from negative 4 to negative 6, those numbers are getting smaller, so I subtract 2, subtract 2, subtract 2. So positive 4 over negative 2, that means my slope is negative 2. Now this next table is vertical. So you're going to pay attention to where the y value is. And we're finding the change in y over the change in x every single time. That's the rule or the formula. So on this table, the y values just increase by 1. To go to 5 to 6, we add 1. 6 to 7, add 1. 7 to 8, add 1. So those increased by 1, and my x values, to go from 0 to 4, we're adding 4, adding 4, adding 4. So positive 1 over positive 4 gives me a slope of 1/4. Okay, and we just have one word problem on this. So these are short notes. A grocery store sells organic Fuji apples by weight. The price of the apples is in a proportional relationship with their weight. Since there's a constant price per pound, the table shows the cost for different weights of apples. So when you buy 2 pounds, it's going to cost you $5.50. 4 pounds costs $11. 6 pounds costs $16.50. 8 pounds costs $22. So let's see how these values change, because we need to find the change in y over the change in x. So these y values go up by $5.50. So those are increasing by $5.50 each time. So positive $5.50. And the x values, to go from 2 to 4, you're adding 2, adding 2, adding 2. So $5.50 divided by 2 should be, what is that, $2.75? Let's double check on our calculator. $2.75. So $2.75 over 1. So the slope is $2.75. So then we want to figure out how much would 1.5 pounds So if you buy a pound and a half of organic apples, we need to take that amount. We could write this equation. Y equals 275 x, because that's the amount of our apples. So we're going to take 275 and multiply it by 1.5. And we're going to use our calculator for this as well. Whoops. $275 times 1.5. So this gives me a value of 4.125. You guys know that when you go to the grocery store, you don't pay $4 and 125 thousandths. So we need to round. We're going to round to the hundredths place, and we're going to use that 5. So y is equal to $4.13 when you buy that many apples. And that's it for this section. Just remember, always y over x. Change in y over the change in x.